Morocco, ranked 22nd in the world by FIFA. The Atlas Lions will be heading to Qatar for their 6th World Cup appearance in just a few days' time. The Moroccans would open their World Cup account in Mexico 1970 with a nice and easy, well, never mind. It was the West German powerhouse in their debut, and despite netting for the very first time in their history, the favorites in this one proved to be way too much. After a disappointing blank versus Peru in the second game, Morocco would become the first ever African nation to draw a match at the World Cup against a strong Bulgarian side, but it would not be enough, and they would bow out of this one with their heads still held high. 1986, they were back in Mexico in the most prestigious tournament. A stout back line held both the Polish and the English to 0-0 draws before they shocked the world with a monster victory over the Portuguese giant 3-1. Abderrazak Khairi, legend of the Moroccan national team, would score twice in 8 minutes, while the famous Abdelkarim Krimau would net the third in this historic moment for the Atlas Lions. The win had the added bonus of making Morocco the first ever African nation to qualify for the round of 16. The win over Portugal couldn't lift the spirits high enough to get them past the mighty West Germans, but this is still the highest the Atlas Lions have ever flown on the world stage. Skipping the cup in Italy, the Moroccan national team were back in the American edition of the World Cup. Another tough group proved to make this a forgettable tournament for the men from North Africa. 3 straight defeats to the hands of Belgium, Saudi Arabia, and Holland were not enough to make much of this tournament. The Parisian streets must have been more to their liking because they availed themselves much better in France 98. A tough 2-2 draw with Norway to start out with gave them hope before a thrashing at the hands of Ronaldo, Rivaldo, and the masterclass that was the 98 Brazil squad in the second game. If only those samba-crazed men would have tied their third match versus Norway, then the famous 3-0 win over Scotland for the Moroccans in the third game would have seen them through. But it wasn't meant to be. Although there are a fair few of the Scotland faithful who remember this game painfully because it was the last time the Scots have been in the tournament. Perhaps a feather for Moroccan caps. Speaking of long gaps in appearances, it would be 20 years on from the warm French evenings of yesteryear before the Atlas Lions found themselves once again in the cup. A soul-crushing opening loss to Iran off the back of an own goal was followed up by a much-anticipated rematch with the Portuguese, where the Moroccans were hoping to recall the heights of 1986. Who else stepped up to crush Moroccan dreams in the 4th minute of this second match? Of course, it had to be Cristiano Ronaldo, to ensure that history did not repeat itself with the only goal of the game. A respectable 2-2 draw with Spain in the third match was not enough to see the Moroccans through in this most recent tournament. Legends such as Khairi, Basir, and Hada will hope the spirits of their scoring boots will be sent to the latest edition of the tournament as they travel to Qatar for a tough group against one of the favorites, Belgium, and World Cup powerhouse, not to mention finalists last time out, Croatia. A strong Canadian side awaits them in their third match. So it's a tough group for the Moroccans, who look to channel the spirit of their 86 team down in Mexico and climb the heights once more on the world's largest stage.